Welcome to the Racing News Show, where we've got the first weekend's action from the World Championships.
Yes, we have got everything from cross-country marathon to downhill, don't we, Neil?
Yeah, all kicked off in Fort William this weekend. A tough track. We've raced there for 21 years. World Cup started there back in 2002 with a famous win from Chris Kavarik. I actually got the calculator out and worked out his average speed from that track. Still stacks up today. It's about 35 kilometres an hour compared to about 38. So all those, 21 years of bike development's actually not that much faster.
It's not, is it? Or it just shows that he was that fast at the time.
Well, he did win by 14 seconds. It was the biggest men's winning margin ever.
Is it?
Rich, what do you think about the track changes? So there's a lot of stone went down at the top of the track, sort of filled in some of the holes. What do you think about that?
Not so keen.
Really?
No, honestly, yeah, I'm sort of a bit of an OG Fort William fan. I like the raw roughness to it. I like how it's sort of weathered in that sort of Annock Moor. It's just all just gnarly, isn't it?
So it is built on a moor. They actually use a helicopter to bring in the stone and drop it in there. So a lot of the track hasn't changed at the top. It still goes same place where I raced it back in 2002. But there are some changes in the woods, and it is a tough track physically. It's a tough track to fall off on.
Definitely. I mean, mixed reviews from the riders, but on the whole, I think the changes did go down well. The track does get a pace thin from the riders non-stop over and over again. So I think those changes were kind of needed. But, to me, I like the rawness of it.
A lot of riders beaten up, trying to race, beaten up as well. I think word on the street was some of the shops in Fort William sold out of kinesiology tape.
I can imagine.
People were strapped up to bits. Obviously, it being the World Champs, there's a big international entry from places like Colombia, Peru, Africa, Japan, Finland, all over the place.
Absolutely everywhere.
And a first for the World Champs, actually first for any downhill race I've seen. We saw a rider on an e-bike.
But...
well...
not quite, was it? Because there was no motor and there was no battery in it either, I believe.
Exactly. So this was Alex Esquila Grand Valet from Andorra. I noticed on the live he was riding a Forrestal, but actually, if you took a look, there was no motor in that bike.
I know, yeah. And I believe Forrestal don't make a downhill bike.
No, exactly. They just make e-bikes.
I mean, and it's still, there are rules and regulations on this, though, aren't there?
Exactly. You cannot race on an e-bike if there's a battery in the motor. You can't do that.
Yeah.
But I thought that was very interesting.
Why not?
Anyway, let's get into the racing action with the junior women, and it was a Kiwi lockout. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah,
amazing rides by these young junior Kiwi riders. Sasha Ernest in third place, Poppy Lane second, and Arise van Leuven, who is a first-year junior as well, winning by 5 seconds.
I know, the force is strong with the sort of the young Kiwi shred squad there, isn't it? I think they're going to be a force to be reckoned with in the future.
Exactly. Great to see the sort of team vibes on the podium as well. It's pretty cool. Junior men, the big story there to begin with actually was Ryan Pinkerton, who qualified fastest, had a really big crash on his last practice run before the race. Actually sort of ripped his shirt off his back, was so beaten up. Couldn't make it there for the race run.
Yeah, Fort William doesn't take no prisoners, does it? It definitely does not.
Big disappointment for him. Actually, Bodie Kuhn finished in second place, but he also had a big crash on his last practice run, but he was 0.4 down on the German rider Henry Kieffer, who took the win. Kuhn obviously looked disappointed, 0.4.
You would be, 0.4, right?
He'd lost it all on the last split as well.
Yeah, I mean, that over sort of that length of time, to be that close has got to be gutting at Worlds.
And we're going to talk about his motorway section a bit further on in the show as well. But, it's seen as it is the easiest part of the track. Big jumps, but compared to what you've ridden at the top, it's almost nothing.
Yeah.
And to lose the race, I mean, it's downhill. You race from the top to the bottom. It doesn't matter where you gain or lose it, really.
I think the problem is, we've both ridden Fort William, and you know that by the time you get to the motorway section, you're goosed, aren't you? You're absolutely cooked. You're so tired. You're so battered and worn out. Yeah,
I don't think it actually shows as much on the live feed because most of these riders are really fit.
Yeah.
They look good. They look solid the whole way down, but actually they are completely done. Probably before they even get to the motorway, I would say. Leo Abella actually came third in that junior men's race as well. Let's move on to the elite and let's start with the women. The stories started straight away in practice. Rachel Atherton, obviously a great comeback season for her, winning around earlier on in the World Cup series. She got injured. She actually dislocated her collarbone. Didn't even crash. Dislocated her shoulder, should I say. Didn't even crash. She cased one of the jumps in her second practice run. She has had lots of shoulder injuries in the past, so that does play out sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's really going to sort of, it cast obviously a bit of a black cloud over things, didn't it? Because obviously we thought, well, great comeback story, Rach, can she do it? Like you said, great success already earlier in the season. So to even be at this race was a big thing for her. So to do that,
I didn't count her out. I've seen it happen before. She won her junior world champs back in the day. I think, if I remember correctly, it was like 3 or 4 weeks after a broken collarbone.
Yeah.
I remember the preparation she did, so she did go and win junior world champs. It wasn't completely out of the question, and she rode well, actually, but not quite good enough.
Yeah.
Also, Nina Hoffman, big crash. I think that was first practice run, smashed her head in. Again, going into the final, she crashed, basically came off that road gap. And she said on Instagram she was just fatigued, and you could see it. It was an unusual place to crash, but she just sort of collapsed as she compressed into that. I
mean, it takes it out of you, man, doesn't it? And it just goes to show how tough that these athletes are at the same time that, we see them coming back. Exactly. And they can absorb these hits and keep going. Yeah, Rachel Atherton, good solid result, not what she's after, obviously. Considering sort of the popping out, missing some practice, taping it up, you got to be pleased with it. I thought that, actually, she may have only had 3 practice runs. Minimal, very minimal. So 6th, just off the top 5, top podium sort of thing.
Yeah. Phoebe Gale actually did finish 5th place, so brilliant result there.
Great
first year elite. Louise Ferguson 4th.
Another great ride.
I thought it was a breakout ride, actually, for really good.
Yeah, that's a standout.
Maureen Cabarrou coming back from some serious injuries, so good return to form, 3rd place. Camille Blanche, now we're getting into the hot end things. So she was red at the top 2 splits on Cabarrou by 1.6, and then went green at split 3. So she was 0.8 faster than Cabarrou at the top of the motorway section, but actually only finished 0.3 up, so lost half a second there.
Yeah, I think that's where the tiredness does come into play, being able to squash those jumps, keep the spin. You got to land them so perfectly to carry that momentum all the way through, haven't you?
She looked like she landed those jumps really good, but she did choose to tuck. So rather than pedal, a couple of those bits, they're quite long. You see almost everyone was getting on the cranks. So whether or not that was the game plan all along, or whether she felt like she was fatigued enough. So Valley Hall, the big win, 2 world champs stripes in a row, backed up 2 seconds as well. Pretty serious. Yeah,
that's a hefty chunk, isn't it? It's a long track, 2 seconds. You might think, well, it's not very much, but actually 2 seconds this day and age is a hefty chunk to put of time to people.
Let's see if we can put a time to the tuck versus pedal debate. Let's compare Blanche to Hull on that last split. So actually it was 30.17 seconds for Blanche, so that final split to the finish, whereas Hull pedalled hard between the jumps and it was 28.6, so almost 1.5 seconds faster for Valley Hall. So not massive, she didn't win it on that section alone.
No.
Well, I would say actually it is massive, but she didn't win it on that section alone.
Yeah, totally. I think if you've still got the juice in you to be able to get on the gas, then I think the proof is in the timing there, isn't it? She managed to put that sort of extra buffer of time in there, so even if she was back, she would have pulled some time.
I think what we did see a lot during the whole race, actually, but even Valley Hall's splits, they went up and down the whole way down. It wasn't like, oh, she's faster again. It was like, she's a bit faster, she's a bit slower. Yeah. She went from 2 seconds up a split 2 and then only 0.6 up on the motorway and then back to 2 seconds at the end.
It's great. It proves that sort of the track is long enough and wild enough that actually the times can sort of concertina and yo-yo in that effect, can't they? That a rider does have the ability, if you like, to pull back time in certain sections.
Right, to add to the drama in the elite men's race, the weather came in. We saw it from the first helicopter shot of the first rider drop in, and it was dry at that point, but you could see the wall of water moving across the horizon in the background. To affect things that have already been affected, Finn Isles was actually quite ill the week before by the sound of it. Had some riders come down for the rain. Greg Williamson put a really good ride in. We saw actually him slide later. We didn't see it on the live feed, but actually later on he had a big drift on. But a brilliant ride from the Scottish rider.
Yeah, for 8th place, I believe. So season or career best for Greg there.
And then the rain started coming, and it looked okay at the top. It does help actually. It sort of cements it all together, but it's when the woods gets wet, and it didn't for a while, and then it definitely did.
It didn't hold. It was umbrellas at the ready because
exactly that.
It was horrible. I'd love to know sort of what the mechanics were doing at that sort of time, because I could only imagine at the top it was sort of frantic. Tyre changes, bike setup, maybe?
Yeah, I don't think tyres, but I think the prep on the mud guards, the goggles. You saw the goggle lens extenders on the peak.
Tear-offs, roll-offs maybe coming up. Well, definitely tear-offs and roll-offs, you could see.
Some of the early riders didn't have them, because I guess they were at the top already when it started raining.
Yeah.
We saw quite a few low peaks. You notice that? Most riders will have their peak as high as it goes. They were actually pushed quite down, quite low to their eyes.
Yeah, like you said, with sort of that extender on to try and stop.
We saw Angel Suarez Alonso put a really solid run in wet conditions as well. Good ride there. Danny Hart was up on the splits and then lost time on the motorway.
Yeah, interesting that.
Not expected. I expect, it's quite flat down there as well. Maybe a slightly heavier sort of rolling resistance, maybe?
Potentially, I mean, there's a lot that goes on by that point there. Maybe he just didn't quite have the power. Like you said, that fatigue was in him a little bit and he didn't have the legs on him.
Well, noticeably, none of the podium finishers were actually in the top 5 on that last section to the finish, so there must have been something in it.
Yeah, maybe he just started rolling slower. That's what I would say.
Matt Walker was looking good until it was looking very not good. Really hard crash on that big left-hand berm that was digging out. That's a really important section where you've got to carry your speed. It goes flat, then uphill, and a long flat section before you get to the motorway. So riders will be looking to exit that corner as fast as possible. Yeah. They're not looking to exit with their front wheel in the ditch.
No, he had a face full of more after that, didn't he? Sadly, he went down pretty hard. So hope you are feeling better, Matt.
I'm sure he'll be feeling rough, but it could have been really worse.
Yeah, but like you said, if you crash there, you've lost your momentum, you've lost speed. It's not. I don't want to say game over, but
yeah. Charlie Hatton looked really good, 3.2 up at split 2 after a lot of the rough, hard stuff, and then extended out the next 2 splits. Charlie kind of looks really solid, kind of undramatic, very smooth. He pumped really hard on the motorway, and undramatic's probably doing him a disservice there, because it was obviously a really, really good run. What do you think about it?
Yeah, man, I think watching Charlie's run, I think he was smooth, he hit his marks. I know Charlie trains exceptionally hard, so he's definitely got like the fitness, not just sort of the cardio, but the strength, just the pure strength it takes, like I said, like to pump and move the bike around and absorb all those huge impacts all the time and then get on the gas at the end. He puts the work in.
Man, a home world champs, obviously, any world champs are special, but when you're in front of the home crowd with family, friends at the bottom, you're going to want to perform.
You find that little extra bit, don't you?
Well, I found a bit too much when I raced in 2007 and threw it down the road once or twice at least, I think. As did Bernard Kerr, unfortunately. He qualified 3rd, and it kind of looked like I've written in, an annoying crash. Yeah. It wasn't like a wild one where it was like, it's going wrong. It was like he caught a bit of the side of a rut in the woods and it went off this little drop and it was over.
That was it. And I know that, post-qualifying, he was like buzzing for that 3rd place. So I know he would have been like charging hard for 1st place. Because realistically, I think Bernard could have been a contender for the win there. I think he definitely had that pace, that new bike of theirs, that prototype was working well. So
you definitely would. He could have won it. It maybe would have been a bit of a surprise, kind of like Charlie Hatton.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, these guys can win it, but to actually go there and do it is really cool. Yeah. Like from Charlie. Greg Minard, disappointment. He's even putting it in his social media how gutting it is. I'm sure he's had a few punches in his time, but this one stung a lot.
Yeah, I mean, he's sort of a Fort William specialist, if you like, isn't
exactly,
he? And a world champs specialist again.
I think he's won 7 times at Fort William.
Yeah.
And it was a weird place. His tyre just
rolled off almost.
Yeah, ripped off the rim. Was it a bit lower already from that he burped it?
Possibly. And he's had a bit of bad luck this year with sort of punctures and wheel issues. So, I don't know, maybe a setup thing going wrong there. I don't know, something that they're definitely going to probably be looking into, that's for sure.
Finn Isles did make the start gate. I thought he looked good as well, and then punctured in a really weird place. Tough weekend for him.
Yeah.
Laurie Greenan, brilliant ride.
Yes.
He did actually stall a bit in that same corner that Matt Walker crashed. It potentially cost him a bit of time, but we'll get into the results in a second. Thibaut Dupreya threw everything at it.
Oh my God.
It's going to be dramatic, and you probably could have guessed it would get most dramatic in the woods.
Yeah, I mean, the guy's unbelievable rider, and he's a wild man. He's a rider that has you on the edge of your seat the whole time.
Yeah, it was hard crash. There was a rut, and they were doing a gnarly line. They were jumping, gapping onto these group of boulders. It was not smooth where they were landing, and he hit the bottom of the rut. And I couldn't quite make out whether he'd slid in the rut or he hit it so hard and fast he didn't get the pop. He just rode into the back of the rocks. Almost.
That's what it looked like to me. Yeah. The weather conditions didn't help. It looked like he just hit it with such force because he doesn't hold back, does he?
Well, he may be going fast in his practice and just didn't kind of get in and up. He just went crack.
He just ploughed through, and then boy did he ever plough. Go.
Andres Kolb, brilliant ride again. A mistake in the woods though. He kind of was washing the front wheel. We saw that quite a lot where the front wheel would go and riders would go down. He kind of rode it, and then rode it up onto the side of the track.
He did get wild.
So it would definitely have cost him some time, but would it have been enough to get the win? Who knows?
Brosnan as well, right?
Exactly. He went really good, really, really fast on the motorway. Yeah. Brilliant ride from him. Look, Bruni, the world specialist, he's a bit more than that. I think I don't want to pigeonhole him as a world specialist. He's a brilliant rider.
Yeah.
Did not get the result. He said on his social media as well that he was very disappointed. Obviously, really looking like he wants to win World Champs.
Yeah, I think he was genuinely gutted, wasn't he?
Every attempt he gets at World Champs, he kind of expects to win them, I guess.
Yeah, I think he certainly puts that thought in him that he definitely knows he can win it, and he's not had much luck with the fort in the past, really, has he? So I think that was like another battle in itself.
Talking point here was definitely his bike. We've speculated on the lockout. You see the LED, the green LED showed up very brightly in the woods where it was so dark. And you can tell, it's got to be a lockout. You look at his bike at the top of the track, it's working out same as everyone else's. The fork is going over pace. You can't really see what's going on with the shock on this bike. It's less obvious to see it bottoming as much or going in. But then you look at the motorway and look at his fork, particularly off the last G out where you drop down towards the finish, and it goes in a third.
Yeah.
Compared to the other bikes, it's not going as much.
Yeah.
And actually, he looked a little bit wild on the motorway. Like he was kind of overshooting jumps more than he maybe expected. So we're speculating that he's hitting the button at the top of the motorway. It is firming up fork and shock, I would expect.
I would have thought it's a combo on there, yeah.
And then he's hitting the takeoffs, and you get an extra pump, so the bike's not soaking up the landing, so you're going to go faster.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of saying that maybe he would have practiced with it, but he was still hitting those jumps hard. He wouldn't have practiced in the wet.
No.
And he would have he wasn't landing perfectly on those jumps.
No, by no means. But race speed is like a notch up again, isn't it? So by the time you're hitting them at race pace, like you said, with that potentially stiffened up suspension, was he just carrying more speed than he thought maybe?
Last rider on the mountain, Loris Vergier, you could see from the helicopter shot, was getting wild. The one section, there's a big slab and he went wide and bounced like this across. But it was good. He was 0.2 seconds up at the first split and then lost a lot of time.
I think he'll be a bit disappointed with sixth, I'll be honest. I think he thought he could do better.
Did you see on his social media though? He was smiling. It was at the finish line because it was going nuts.
Yeah.
Everyone was jumping on.
Oh, it's crazy.
And Loris Vergier was just standing there laughing. Like, what is going on?
Yeah, because there was like so much craziness going on one side. I actually saw Bruni just walk up and hug him as well. Did you see that? Did you see Bruni was just like giving him a hug? I mean, I know these two are close.
But it was a brilliant ride from Charlie Hatton. He took that win, his first ever, World Cup or World Champs win.
Yeah.
Brilliant ride. Andreas Kolb, second place. 2 Atherton bikes up on the podium.
Yeah, crazy, right?
Imagine if Rachel Atherton had won. That would have been the perfect weekend for them.
A first, second and a sixth in women's is still nothing to be sniffed at.
And it's impressive. You look at something like a Specialized demo that's just taken years and years to perfect. The Atherton bikes has not been around that long, and it's I said in the commentary, it's a homemade bike. It's kind of a bit more professional than a homemade bike. A home engineered, but built basically in a factory.
It's a family-run business
in Wales.
Right?
Yeah, exactly, and incredible to see.
Yeah.
And I think their team manager Dan Brown may have been sporting a hangover on his drive back down south. Actually,
I believe probably most of them were. Right, yes, that's the downhill. But onto the marathon now, because that actually also took place. So in the men's, the elite winner was Henrik Avens Senior with a total time of 4 hours 14 minutes, winning by 28 seconds, Neil.
Yeah, brilliant ride, and conditions slightly different to Brazil, you think, as well.
Yeah, 100k course for those guys and girls to race on. I mean, it looked brutal, but good to see him sort of back into winning ways and sort of top form. Because I know he's had a bit of a tough year. Not quite where he wanted to be. So
exactly. Women's elite race winner was Mona Mittermeier with a time of 5 hours 7 minutes. A good winning margin, 54 seconds, should I say. We'll see some of these riders backing up. Obviously, we've got I think it's a 10-day long World Championships, Super World Champs they're calling it. We've got all sorts going on. But next weekend we've got short track and XC Olympic.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll see these riders there again. They've got a week in between events. Do you think that'll happen?
I think on these two winners, I think we'll see them back at the XCO for sure. I mean, but just remember, XCC short track is up on Friday. It's not a lot of rest, really. We've
got some big names as well. We've got Mathieu van der Poel, who won the men's road race world championship. Yeah. He is in the cross country.
I know.
That's big story. Plus Tom Pidcock as well, I hear.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, just make sure everyone keep your eyes peeled to GMBN Racing for all the upcoming action and over, obviously, on the GCN Plus app as well, ain't it?
Yeah, I see it all live on GCN Plus. Various territory restrictions apply, but get yourself over there to watch some live racing.
All right, until next time, see you later.